appreciate everyone that came out today for this tour of the Jones pumping plant. I've been spending the last hour and a half or so with stakeholders in the really important discussions about California water in the face of a drought. We're talking with farmers and people from the Central Valley Project, my colleagues at the Bureau of Reclamation, Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Geological Survey, the state of California, John Laird here with the state, and a number of water users who are struggling through this really profound drought situation that you have here in California right now. So very, very helpful to hear the perspectives of the people that depend on water. Very helpful to see a facility like this that's 60 years old that has been so valuable in supporting farmers in the Central Valley of California as the population has grown and the acreage that are being irrigated has grown. But we're having a rough year this year with water, and one of the reasons I'm here is to hear firsthand from folks that are feeling the effects of the water, the economic impacts it's going to have on them, the trade-offs that we have with water management, so that in my role as part of the federal family we can be at the table as a constructive partner. So that was what today was all about.
Were you able to tell the farmers anything definitive today during this roundtable discussion in terms of funding or anything?
Well, I think it's fair to say the farmers have been at the table all along with those that represent their water interests.
Were the Delta farmers involved?
I can't answer that question. Were there Delta farmers there today? I think they were mostly south of the Delta.
That's
today.
always the case, and I think you have something to answer about that.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I asked. Why isn't the Delta able to be at the table more?
Well, I will tell you, sir, that in my role in Washington, D.C., I've met with folks north of the Delta, and I've heard their concerns. And so it's important that we take in all points of view. And so today was to talk about the Central Valley Project, which is in coordination between the Bureau of Reclamation
But you're right
and
here
local
in
agencies.
the backyard of the Delta people, and you don't invite the Delta stakeholders?
Well, this is a very large and complicated state, and it's important that we are here and we listen to all perspectives. The perspectives I heard today were from one component. I can't address all of the issues on every visit, but this certainly won't be my last visit to California.
Okay, we hope that you'll come back to meet with the Delta people.
Do other folks have questions?
Yeah, what can you... sorry. Several comments, Seymour. What can you tell people about the role of Interior infrastructure-wise? What can you actually do right now? And what can you do in the future?
Well, so the Bureau of Reclamation built these facilities back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that have delivered water to so much of California. And we've done it in partnership with state organizations, and we manage water jointly. So we're at the table with the state on a regular basis. Right now, you are facing the most serious drought situation that you've had in historical memory. 1977 was the worst year up until that time. You got a great water event just a few weeks ago that got you almost even with 1977, but you're still 15 inches of rain behind where you normally would be. So what can the federal family do to address the situation? One of the things we can do is be around the table to understand what the issues are and urge our partners from a state and federal level to exercise as much flexibility as they have within the laws that we are required to uphold to address the situation here in California. So an example, the U.S. Geological Survey, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the National Marine Fisheries Service have worked together to increase the amount of flexibility, looking at a longer period of time for average water flows so that when there is a major rain event, more water can be pumped. We're pumping significantly more water this year than we were last year, partly as a result of that flexibility. So the important thing is getting everybody to the table, because Mother Nature has created this drought. This drought is not being created by the Bureau of Reclamation or the state of California. But working together, we can put as much flexibility in place as possible to satisfy as many users as possible, recognizing that nobody's going to get the amount of water that they are hoping for. And we have senior water rights and junior water rights and all kinds of legal complexities that we have to operate within. And what's helpful is that people are around the table together working on those issues.
Governor Brown has said that, he can't make it rain, and neither can the federal government, as you just said, that you can't make it rain. But what specifically, what in the short term can the federal government do? What are you doing, and what can you do in the long term?
So in the short term, as I mentioned, we can introduce as much flexibility as the laws allow us to take advantage of significant rain events as we've recently had that enable us to preserve as much water while also meeting the needs across the spectrum, from environmental needs to agricultural needs, municipal and industrial needs. So a lot of it is understanding the science. The U.S. Geological Survey provides that to us. They know salinity levels, they know flow rates, they work closely with all the stakeholders to help us make the smartest decisions we can to conserve as much water as we can. Another thing that everybody can do in the state of California is use the least amount of water possible. That's in agricultural, that's in individual users, that's in municipal users, and California has done a great job. Since 1977, you have increased your population from 21 million to 38 million people that are relying on these water supplies, and yet you've done a lot of that through conservation. And so these systems, which were put in place in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, have served your needs for many years to come. Long term, the governor and the state are working on a long-term plan for water in the state. We will be at the table at the Bureau of Reclamation, along with the Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Marine Fisheries Service, and the USGS, to say what is likely to happen over the long term in terms of drought scenarios and rainfall, and how do we build an infrastructure that addresses the importance of the industries in California, from agriculture to industrial to municipal, so that you have a long-term solution, just as this solution was put in place many decades ago that has served California so well. So planning, using the best available science in a climate change scenario, which is happening all over the landscapes. I see it every place I go. We've got to look forward. We can't say, let's just fix what we have. And there are people who would say it's all about supporting the environment with flows, and that could be going to other users. But it's pretty clear there's not enough water for anybody right now, whether it's species and habitat
Just
or whether
a quick
it's
follow-up. The governor, in terms of a long-term plan, he's a strong believer in these tunnels, the Delta tunnels. He wants President Obama to back this plan. He wants you to back this plan. Where are you on that?
Well, the Bay Delta Conservation Plan has been in the works for many years. And I think it's a plan certainly with controversy, and I have heard from a number of elected officials and folks within the environmental community that are opposed to it. I've also heard from many people that are supportive of it, and what's going to be important is that everybody stays together at the table to understand the competing needs of the water and the best way to move that forward. I do think that the work that's gone into the concept of tunnels is an important one for California to consider. But within that, there are choices to be made in terms of size and capacity of the facilities, and all of those things are being discussed right now by people that know a lot more about it than I do.
When you just said there's not enough water for anybody, and you mentioned flexibility, could you just elaborate a little bit more on what do you mean we have to be flexible, doing what exactly?
Oh, what I was talking about with flexibility is the National Marine Fisheries Service and the Fish and Wildlife Service, in conjunction with the U.S. Geological Survey, have extended the amount of time to do assessments of the amount of water flow necessary to take more advantage of the high rainflow events that you've had. So they are doing everything they can within the laws that they must manage to move as much water while doing their job in protecting species. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of flexibility. We need to understand what those water demand needs are, and we need to understand what's necessary with supply, and I suspect that storage will be an important part of it, but it's certainly not a short-term solution. We also know that this is an earthquake-prone area, and we have to think about our facilities in the context of climate change, in the context of potential natural disasters like earthquakes, and that's where long-range planning is going to be very helpful.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.